So this went into effect July 1, so everybody's getting geared up now. It was kind of impossible for everybody to have this in place by July 1 because it happened just overnight. But everybody's gearing up to record these meetings. I think it can have some good effects also. People tend to be a little more polite and be a little less hostile when they know they're being recorded. And I think you want to announce to everybody at the beginning of the meeting, we're recording this meeting pursuant to NRS 116. And people tend not to swear as much. They behave a lot better when they're being recorded. Yes? Does it include the executive meeting? No. In fact, the law expressly says that executive meetings are not to be audio recorded. So you don't ever want to record the executive session, and you always have to record the board meeting. Let's move on to page 31. And there's the new law, the Senate bills that talk about the executive session must not be audio recorded. Also, with regard to executive session, a board cannot meet in executive session to open or consider bids, or to enter into, renew, modify, or terminate, or take any other action regarding a contract, regarding any contract. There used to be an exception that you could meet in executive session for attorney contracts. That's been taken out. So now you can't meet in executive session for any type of contracts. Has to be done in an open meeting. Executive session is limited, very limited, to basically three things. And they're on the bottom of page 30, top of page 31. Consultation with your association's attorney regarding privileged matters. Number two is kind of a funny one, discussing the character, misconduct, professional competence, physical or mental health of your manager. If you drive your manager crazy, you can talk about them in executive session. I don't know where the mental health part came, but... And the fourth one is to discuss violation of the governing documents, failure to pay assessments, or failure to adhere to a construction schedule. So your executive sessions are limited to only these three things. And I see boards all the time doing stuff in executive session that they shouldn't. So don't go beyond those three things. And certainly you don't want to enter into any contracts in your executive session. Now with regard to hearings at the bottom of page 31, the person who's subject to being sanctioned at a hearing, the alleged violator, they've added some law that says they're entitled to due process, which has to include the right to counsel, the right to present witnesses, and the right to present information relating to any conflict of interest of any board member or member of the hearing panel. I think it's a good idea when you send out your hearing notice to put these rights on the notice in writing. Say, pursuant to NRS 116, you have the right to counsel, you have the right to present witnesses, and you have the right to present any conflicts involving the people that are hearing your case. If you put that on the notice, you're certainly in compliance as long as you carry out those rights during the hearing. But a lot of people don't know what their rights are when they come to these hearings, so you want to make sure that you provide such rights to them. Also, a lot of people want to know a lot of associations want to know if somebody's bringing an attorney. I think it's okay for you to say, if you're bringing counsel to the hearing, please notify us in advance so that we can have our attorney there. I've seen associations where somebody shows up with an attorney and they say, oh, well, you didn't tell us, so we're going to continue the hearing until we can have our attorney present. So if you ask them to let you know that they're bringing an attorney, you might be able to avoid that situation and have your attorney there and you can finish the hearing. Okay, page 33, bids. If an association solicits bids for an association project, the bids have to be open during a meeting of the board. Association project basically includes anything that involves the maintenance, repair, replacement, or restoration of the common elements. Something providing services to the association. So if you're soliciting bids, and under the 3-bid rule, as you know, board members are required to get 3 bids when practicable. The words "when practicable" have been open to many different interpretations. I think we all agree that if you're getting bids, or if you have a project that's going to cost $100, do we have to go out and get 3 bids for it? Most people say no, it's not practicable to do that. If we have a project for $100,000, do we have to go get 3 bids? Everybody agrees we do. Now somewhere in there, in between there, is a threshold where it becomes practicable. And that's going to depend on a lot of things. It's going to depend on the size of your association, the type of project. Everybody draws the line in a little bit different place. But if you decide to get 3 bids, those bids have to be open at the board meeting. The board cannot see them prior to the meeting. Why do we have this law? Because some board members were abusing the process. They were looking at a bid, calling the other bidding party, saying, here's the number you got to beat. So we ended up with this law. Now the problem with it is, it's going to be real difficult to get this bid accepted and this contract done at one meeting. Usually you're getting these bids in your board packet. You have a week to review them. They've been analyzed by the board or by a committee. So you're not going to be able to do that. Now the manager does still have the right to look over the contracts, make sure the scopes are correct, make sure the RFP's been complied with. So your manager can look and scrutinize, contact the contractors, and get them to conform with what was asked for. But you as board members should not be seeing those bids for the first time until you're seated at an open meeting. Yes, sir. Well, it says the bids must be open during a meeting of the board. Now, there are different interpretations of this. Okay. The question is, what if we have a meeting a week before our regular meeting, and the only thing on the agenda is homeowner comments and opening of bids? Yes, you can do that. Then you've opened the bids, it gives the board time to evaluate them, do their homework, and then at the next meeting a week later, they can be in a position to award that contract to someone. So, well, I think it's always good to have your manager at a meeting. The law doesn't require the manager to be there, but that's one way to deal with it. Another thing that some people are going to start doing is submit the bids without the numbers on them to the board, so that everybody can see that they have the same scope of work. Everybody's bidding apples to apples. Because as you know, a lot of times we have problems. We get these bids and they're all different scopes. And it's impossible to accept any of them because everybody's bid something different or they have wrong quantities. So some people are going to deal with it that way, where they're just submitting the bid without the numbers, and you can look it over and make sure everybody's got the same scope. Now with regard to the manager looking at the numbers, looking at the bids, I discussed this with the Ombudsman's office, and they agreed with my opinion that the managers are professionals. They're agents. They're typically the ones who are getting these bids, presenting the RFPs, presenting the scope. I think they need to look at them to make sure that they're in conformance with what we're looking for. And as long as the board members are opening these bids at a meetings, I think that's okay for the manager to review them. So there's a lot of different ways to handle it. But as board members, you don't want to be seeing those bids and seeing those numbers until you're at an open meeting. Let's take one more question or two more, and then we'll take our break.